coming up on this edition of Seattle Seahawks Today, we're going to explain how John Schneider and the Seattle Seahawks pulled off highway robbery in recent weeks. That and more coming up on today's program. Tyler Jones here with you. Thanks for joining us. Before we go any further in today's show, though, folks, we are closing in on 59,500 subscribers. We want to get to 60, but we got to get to 59.5 first. If you love the Seattle Seahawks, this is the channel for you. We're bringing you our daily news and rumors, live shows every week, watch parties every game day, as well as breaking news, Q&A mailbags, and more. Your one-stop shop for all things Seahawks. Subscribe now for free. Join the family of 12s. Help us reach our next milestone. YouTube.com/SeahawksTV. To subscribe now for free, and we'll get started with today's show. Highway robbery. How on earth did the Seahawks pull off the Ernest Jones trade? And what an impact this guy has had already in his short time with the Seattle Seahawks. It has been quite the start to his tenure here with this team. And let's begin kind of setting the scene for you. Go back a couple weeks to prior to the trade deadline when the Seahawks made this deal to bring in Ernest Jones from the Tennessee Titans. And I'll be honest, this was not a trade that we were sitting here expecting. This one came totally out of the blue, the Seahawks bringing in Ernest Jones from Tennessee. They gave up Jerome Baker, who was a starting linebacker that they brought in for the Miami Dolphins, as well as the 2025 fourth-round pick to make it happen. But based on the results we've seen already, this trade was a steal as the Seahawks found a player that I think is going to be a part of this team for a very long time. You think about what they gave up here, folks. You traded away a player on an expiring contract in Jerome Baker, who, if we're going to be honest with you, they probably weren't going to re-sign Jerome Baker anyway. He hadn't played that great, and he was already dealing with a number of injury issues. So moving on from Jerome Baker wasn't the end of the world. And then you threw in a fourth-round pick. You weren't going to find a player close to Ernest Jones's caliber in the fourth round, more than likely anyway. So with that in mind, you gave up those pieces for now what we're seeing in Ernest Jones, who looks like a cornerstone piece to this Seahawks defense for years to come. This is not a rental. This was a long-term investment that the Seahawks have made. So far, Jones in his first 3 games with the Seattle Seahawks has accounted for 37 tackles, leading this team in tackles with 1 TFL and 1 pass breakup. And the talk of the town when it comes to Ernest Jones is that he looks like the best linebacker the Seahawks have had in years. Let's start with Dave Wyman, the former Seahawk, also on the Seahawks radio network. He was doing some radio with Seattle Sports the other day, and he had this to say when it comes to Ernest Jones. I haven't seen this kind of play at inside linebacker since Bobby in year 8 or 9, 2019 or 2020 around here. It's amazing how he's elevated the play here. When Ernest Jones got here, I was like, maybe he'll make taking guards cool again. And on top of that, not only is he doing that, of taking on those guards, he's also making his teammates better. The Seahawks turned to a rookie in Tyrese Knight to play alongside him, moving on from Terrell Dodson. And we've already seen that Tyrese Knight's play, as well as other guys on this defense, elevate because of playing next to Ernest Jones. More from Dave Wyman. And I was making that kind of joke, but it's a culture shift. It's like, hey, this is what we're doing in this room. We're not going around blocks. We're not going underneath blocks. He's just bringing a culture of taking on blockers. And you saw Tyrese Knight take on a blocker really nicely, and not only take on the blocker, but get off the blocker. The shedding part of it, it really matters. And at the end of the day, I think this was an A-plus trade for John Schneider and the Seattle Seahawks to pull this off. I know that there was some concerns over the last couple of weeks about what Seattle was doing at the linebacker position, saying goodbye to Jerome Baker as quickly as they did, releasing Terrell Dodson, which was a bit of controversy, a guy that was your leading tackler at the time. But at the end of the day, the Seahawks are in great shape at this position, and Ernest Jones is the biggest reason why. Looking back, hindsight being 2020 now, maybe you had a different grade on this a couple of weeks ago, but how are you feeling now? How would you grade the trade for Ernest Jones? A, B, C, D, or F? You heard my grade. I said A+. What do you guys think? Weigh in our pinned comment today. Let us know what your grade is. Today's show is sponsored by our friends at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the place to go for daily fantasy made easy. Here's how it works. You choose 2 or more players on any given category. Get the choice of more or less, whether you're talking fantasy points in football, rebounds in basketball, goals in hockey, all sorts of different categories to choose from. Go to prizepicks.com/SaleAtS, promo code SaleAtS, and they will give you $50 to play for free when you spend $5. You don't even have to win to get the money on PrizePicks, folks. It's simple as that. PrizePicks.com/SaleAtS, promo code SaleAtS to play along with us today. And when I play PrizePicks, folks, I have so much fun with PrizePicks because I'm making money. I'm putting down some of my favorite players that I get to work with, whether it's Seahawk players or whether we're working with other sports, mixing and matching. You can do the same. Go to prizepicks.com/SaleAtS, promo code SaleAtS. The link is in the comments and the description of today's video. PrizePicks, proud partner of Seattle Seahawks today. Glad to have them on board here on today's show. All right, let's talk more about Ernest Jones now. And when I look a little further into what Ernest Jones is bringing into the table, the biggest impact that we've seen in his short time in Seattle has been the run defense. And it's no secret, if you have followed this Seahawks team for the last several seasons, the biggest issue on the defensive side of the ball has been the run defense. So the fact that he is making that much of improvement to this group goes a long ways. We saw what they did last week with their ability to slow down Christian McCaffrey. Let's go by the numbers here for a second. You go back into the hot tub time machine of the first 8 games of Seattle's season. When they were taking on their opponents in those first 8 games, they were giving up about 5.3 yards per carry. So after every 2 runs, they're giving up a first down, usually about 130-plus yards per game. The last 2 games, with Ernest Jones into the fold, they are only giving up 3.6 yards per carry. That's nearly 2 yards difference with Ernest Jones in the equation. And they've gone down from giving up 130 yards per game to now down to 80 yards per game. What we've seen from Jones is he's bringing 2 specific things to the ability when it comes to run defense. Besides the boom, he's bringing violence and stopping power. Mike Salk from Seattle Sports had this to say: the violence, the stopping power, diagnosing, and then being in the right place at the right time and not a split second late. Anticipation, accuracy, but also willingness to fire once you get the anticipation, like to be there and beat the block with speed. Again, probably the best play we've seen at inside linebacker since Bobby's first stint in Seattle, and I think that's huge. Got to assume he's a long-term solution. So let's go over some nerd numbers from the folks at Pro Football Focus of what we've seen from Ernest Jones in his 3 games with the Seahawks so far. His overall grade, a 62.9. The run defense grade, a 66.5. Better than advertised with that number there, as the impact is not just himself but other guys. The tackling grade, my goodness, an 82.3 and a coverage grade of 61. And I got to tell you, just seeing that when we talk about his ability to tackle, bringing that boom there, that's a huge difference of what we're seeing compared to, you look at Ernest Jones to some of the other linebackers at this position for Seattle, is that when he is wrapping up, when he's making a tackle, those guys are going down almost immediately. They're not being dragged for 3, 4, 5 extra yards. That's the impact he brings to his tackling that separates him. Ernest Jones had to say this this past week on Seattle's defense. We can go out there as a defense and play with anybody. We showed what we are. We played physically and with discipline. I think we can be something special. So there you have it from Ernest Jones on the defense. Let's ask you, are you all in on Ernest Jones? Do you believe? Type Y for yes, in for no. You know I'm a believer. I'm sold with everything I've seen from Ernest Jones. I'm typing Y for yes. Let us know in the comment section, Y for yes, in for no. So, what is next for Ernest Jones and the Seattle Seahawks? The next step for me, I think, is extending him and keeping him around long term. I've seen enough, small sample size the last few weeks, where I'm saying he's got to be here for a long time. And the comparison I make, folks, is I think he's this year's Leonard Williams. When the Seahawks made the trade last year for Leonard Williams, what was I telling you on this program? That they couldn't go back, that they gave up too much, that they made a commitment that Leonard Williams was going to be here for a long time. We had to wait a bit until we got to free agency before they paid Leonard Williams, but they got something done. I don't want to wait as long as John Schneider did last go around on Leonard Williams, because I think it ultimately cost them some money they could have saved had they paid him quicker than what they did. I don't want to go to free agency when it comes to Leonard Williams. I want to take care of this now when it comes to Ernest Jones, for that matter, because his projection is already looking pretty steep before we talk about him going to a competitive market with other bidders out there. You're looking at his projection being about 5 years, $91.5 million with close to $28 million guaranteed. It won't be cheap, but it will be worth it, folks. You look at the resume of Ernest Jones. Began his career with the LA Rams, and we got to see firsthand how much of a menace he was, as he was so disruptive in those games against Seattle over the years, helping get the Rams to the Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl title. And you look at the statistics. He's on pace right now to have one of, if not the best seasons of his career already, with 81 tackles, 4 TFLs, and 3 pass breakups. And he still has the ability to go after the quarterback, too. We haven't quite seen it just yet, but dating back to last season, which is unique for his position, 4.5 sacks. He can do that as well if that is asked from him. What I'm looking for now when it comes to Ernest Jones in this contract situation, you lock down Ernest Jones now, and then your linebacking group is set for years to come with what you have to work with. And as we talked through the offseason and into training camp, the discussion was with Dodson and Baker, do you have your long-term solutions? And the answer was obviously no. Now, with what we've seen from Ernest Jones and with Tyrese Knight developing and headed in the right direction, it would seem that you have it figured out now. So there's no reason to wait. Go ahead and take care of Ernest Jones now and potentially save money from him down the line. Should the Seahawks extend Jones right now? I say yes. If you agree with me, type E for extend. If you think we should wait a little bit and see how the market plays out, type W for wait. Weigh in the comment section. Let us know. Appreciate you joining us here in this edition of Seattle Seahawks Today. For continuing Seahawks coverage, subscribe now, youtube.com/SeahawksTV. I'm Tyler Jones. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.